What would you do if someone told you to move your boat on a lake you actually own? You ever notice how the people who talk the loudest about rules usually don't know them all that well? Yeah, this story is about that. It all started on a warm Saturday morning in Hot Springs, Arkansas, the kind of day that makes you want to kick back, grab a cold drink, and let the sun do its thing. That's exactly what Darius Coleman had planned. He'd been working hard all week, closing deals, handling clients, and now he wanted nothing more than to tinker with his old fishing boat on his private dock. Darius wasn't flashy, but anyone who knew him would tell you the man had taste. His boat? A classic. Weathered teak, polished chrome. The kind of boat that had stories of its own. He had on an old gray t-shirt, a pair of worn jeans, and a ball cap tilted low to block the glare. It was peaceful. The water was calm, almost like glass. You could hear birds in the distance and the occasional splash of a fish breaking the surface, and then the peace shattered. "Excuse me?" The voice cut through the quiet like a knife, sharp, firm, annoyed. Darius looked up from tightening a bolt on the engine. A woman in a cream-colored blouse and pressed khaki pants stood on the dock's edge, clipboard in one hand, phone in the other, sunglasses so big they covered half her face. "Can I help you?" Darius asked, standing up slowly. "Yes, you can help me," she said, striding closer like she owned the place. "This boat needs to be moved. It's not allowed to sit here. HOA rules." Darius blinked, confused at first. "I'm sorry, what?" She sighed, the kind of sigh people give when they think they're dealing with someone beneath them. "This dock is for community use. Boats can't just be left here all weekend. You'll need to relocate it immediately." He stared at her for a moment, letting her words hang in the air. Then he chuckled, quietly. "Community dock? That's what you think this is?" Her head tilted, lips pursed. "That's what I know it is. I'm the HOA president, and it's my job to make sure everyone follows the rules. We've had complaints about people storing personal property where it doesn't belong." He wiped his hands on a rag, calm as could be. "And you decided to start with me?" "Yes," she said firmly, "because this is the third time I've seen this boat here. It's against policy." There was a pause, just long enough for the sound of water lapping against the dock to sneak back in. Darius glanced at the lake, then back at her. She was serious. Dead serious. "Ma'am," he said finally, "I think you might be mistaken." "No," she snapped. "I know the rules, and if you don't move this boat, I'll have to escalate this to the board." He couldn't help it. He laughed. A low, easy laugh that made her brows knit together. "What's funny?" she demanded. Darius shook his head. "Nothing. Just, this is going to be interesting." But little did Linda Prescott know she'd just started a fight she couldn't win, and the first crack in her confidence was about to show. Linda stood there, her stance rigid like she was guarding the gates of some kingdom. Clipboard clutched against her chest, sunglasses reflecting the sunlight, making her look even more self-assured. Darius tossed the rag onto the boat's seat and stepped onto the dock. He was taller than she expected, broad-shouldered, calm, almost too calm for a man being threatened by the HOA president. "Let me get this straight," he said, his tone steady. "You're telling me I can't keep my boat here, on this dock?" "That's correct," Linda replied quickly. "This dock belongs to the community, and the HOA has strict guidelines. Boats can only stay for 2 hours. 2. Not overnight, and definitely not for the weekend." Darius folded his arms and nodded slowly like he was processing. "And you enforce that for everybody?" "Yes, absolutely." Her voice had that high, sharp edge now. "You're not special. Everyone follows the rules." Something about the way she said that, "you're not special," hung in the air a little too long. Darius caught it. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Got it," he said. "And you're sure about this? No exceptions?" "No exceptions," she repeated, her tone clipped. "If you don't move it, I'll have to issue a fine. And trust me, we've dealt with stubborn homeowners before." "Homeowners?" Darius repeated, tilting his head. "So you think I live here?" Linda hesitated for half a second, then shrugged. "Well, yes, obviously. This whole area is part of Lakeshore Estates." He nodded again slowly. "Interesting." Her brows knitted together. "What's so interesting about that?" "Oh, nothing," Darius said casually, glancing out at the water. "Just wondering how deep you think your authority runs." She crossed her arms tighter, defensive now. Deep enough to keep people from breaking the rules. Darius let the word hang there as he knelt back down to grab a wrench from the boat. He didn't even look at her when he spoke next. You ever ask yourself why you've never seen me at any of your HOA meetings? Linda scoffed. I don't keep track of every face. I'm busy making sure this neighborhood stays respectable. That word, respectable. It landed like a stone. Darius raised his eyes to meet hers, calm but sharp now. Respectable, huh? He said quietly. You do realize. You walked onto private property just now. Linda blinked. For the first time since she showed up, a flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. Excuse me, this is the community dock. No, Darius said, standing up slowly, towering over her now. His voice was even, measured. This dock is mine. For a beat, Linda said nothing. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her grip on that clipboard tightened. Yours? She repeated, almost laughing. No, that's not possible. The lake belongs to the HOA. It always has. Darius tilted his head like he was genuinely amused. Is that what they told you? She bristled. It's in the bylaws. He chuckled, low and smooth. I'd love to see those. Linda pulled out her phone, scrolling like she was ready to pull up some document to shut him down. But the way his voice carried, the calm confidence in it, something told her she was about to hit a wall. Look, she said sharply, lowering her phone. I don't know who you think you are, but you're not above the rules, so move the boat, or I'll make sure the board gets involved. Darius smiled again, not wide, just enough to let her know she had no idea what game she was playing. Linda, right? He asked softly. You might want to call them now, because the next words out of his mouth were going to flip her entire world upside down, and this was only the beginning. Linda's lips pressed into a thin line as she tapped on her phone. Her confidence was cracking, but she wasn't about to let him see that. She put the call on speaker, her voice sharper than ever. Hi, Trina. Yeah, it's Linda. We've got a violation at the dock again. That boat is still here. She shot Darius a pointed look. Bring the others. We need to handle this now. Darius leaned against the railing, arms crossed. The calm in his eyes wasn't arrogance. It was something else. Control. He didn't even flinch. Call the whole squad, he said lightly. Make it interesting. Linda's brows furrowed at his tone. Who talks like that when the HOA is about to show up? Most folks would be sweating bullets. Minutes later, 3 SUVs pulled up near the path leading to the lake. Out stepped Trina, a tall woman in a navy sundress. Mike, the HOA treasurer with his ever-present polo shirt tucked neatly into khakis. And Ken, the guy who always had a Bluetooth earpiece like he was on Wall Street, when really, he ran a landscaping company. Linda, Trina called, heels crunching on the gravel as they approached. What's going on now? Linda waved dramatically toward Darius. This man refuses to move his boat. He claims the dock is his property. Ken laughed under his breath. What? That's ridiculous. The lake is community owned. Darius raised a hand casually. You sure about that? Trina narrowed her eyes. Yes, we're sure. Lakeshore Estates maintains this property. It's in the covenants. Covenants, huh? Darius echoed, nodding slowly. That's cute, Ken scoffed. Cute? Listen, man, just move the boat and we won't fine you. Simple as that. Darius's eyes flicked to Ken, then to the others. Fine me for what? Being on my own dock? The silence after that was heavy. You could feel the tension thicken like humidity before a storm. Linda spoke first, her voice louder than necessary. Your dock? Sir, please stop pretending. This isn't a joke. Darius stepped forward now, not aggressive, but deliberate. His boots hit the wood with a steady rhythm. You think I'm joking? His voice stayed calm. Too calm. Tell me something. How long have you all been running your little fishing tournaments out here? Mike frowned. About 5 years? Why? Darius nodded like that confirmed something. And you've been charging entry fees for those events, right? Trina's eyes narrowed. What's your point? My point, Darius said, pausing to look at each of them, is that for 5 years, you've been making money on my lake without asking. That's theft, and trust me, that's not going to fly anymore. Linda laughed nervously, like the sound might make his words less real. Your lake? No. The HOA doesn't own a drop of it. Darius cut in. His tone sharpened, just enough to slice through the smugness in their voices. Check the county records if you don't believe me. The lake, the dock, the access road leading down here, all mine. Bought it 8 years ago when the previous owner split the land and sold parcels. You folks never bothered to check. You just assumed. Their faces. Priceless. Trina's jaw actually dropped. Mike's eyes darted to Linda like, is this true? Ken pulled out his phone like he was about to Google the entire county's database on the spot. You're lying, Linda said finally, though her voice wavered. Darius smirked. You want proof? I've got the deed in my truck. Want me to grab it? Nobody answered. The sound of the wind rippling across the lake filled the space where their confidence used to be. Here's the deal, Darius continued, his tone steady. You've been using my property for years without permission, and now you're threatening to fine me? He let that question hang like bait in the water. No, that ends today. Trina shifted uncomfortably. Look, maybe we can talk about this. Oh, we're going to talk, Darius said, his smile thin as paper. But first, let me make something clear. There's a new policy. Effective immediately, all HOA events on my lake are canceled. No more tournaments, no more fishing club. You want access? You'll need to negotiate. With me. Linda's face flushed red, fury and humiliation mixing like gasoline waiting for a spark. You can't do this, she snapped. Darius tilted his head. Watch me. But this wasn't just about a lake anymore. It was about pride, power, and a truth that Linda wasn't ready to face. And the fallout? It was about to shake the entire neighborhood. Ken stood frozen, still scrolling through his phone like salvation might appear in the county database. Trina bit her lip. Mike adjusted his glasses, and Linda, oh, Linda. Her face was the color of a ripe tomato. You're bluffing, she said finally, her voice louder than it needed to be. People who don't believe what they're hearing often talk like that, as if volume makes their argument stronger. There's no way you own this entire lake. It doesn't even make sense. Darius gave her a smile so calm it almost made her more nervous. Doesn't have to make sense to you. It's called real estate investment, Linda. Some people buy stocks. I bought land. He started walking toward his black pickup, parked near the trail, his boots crunching on gravel. Y'all want proof, right? Give me a second. The HOA crew exchanged glances like kids caught in a lie. Trina muttered, This can't be real. Mike didn't say anything. He just rubbed the back of his neck, eyes darting between Linda and the lake like he'd just seen his retirement plans sink. A few minutes later, Darius came back holding a thick manila folder. He set it on the hood of his truck and flipped it open, pulling out a stack of papers. The sound of the paper snapping against the metal hood was louder than it should have been. Here you go, he said, spreading them out. Warranty deed, survey maps, legal descriptions. Knock yourselves out. Ken stepped forward first, grabbing the top sheet like it was evidence in a crime scene. His eyes scanned the lines, his lips moving as he read. Then his shoulders sank. Damn, he muttered. He's not lying. Trina took it next, her hands shaking just enough for Darius to notice. She scanned it, then looked up, stunned. This says, you own the lake and the surrounding 20 acres? 22, Darius corrected smoothly. Bought it 8 years ago when the original owner split the lots. Cost me a nice chunk of change, but worth every penny. Linda refused to even touch the papers. She stood with her arms crossed so tight it looked painful. This doesn't mean you can just shut us out. The HOA manages this neighborhood. The lake is part of the community experience. It's in our literature. Darius chuckled, low and steady. Your literature? That's cute. Problem is, your literature doesn't override legal ownership. And the law says, this water, this dock, all of it, mine. Her jaw clenched. This is ridiculous. If this is true, why didn't you say anything before? Because, Darius said, leaning back against his truck, I didn't care. Y'all wanted to fish, hold little tournaments? Fine. Didn't bother me. Until today. When you walked down here, tried to throw your weight around, and told me to move my boat. That stung. Her face flushed even darker. I was doing my job, she snapped. No, Darius said calmly. You were doing too much. There's a difference. Ken let out a low whistle. Man, this is going to be a mess. You're telling me, Mike muttered. Darius straightened, his voice carrying just enough authority to remind them this wasn't up for debate. Here's how it's going to work. Effective immediately, no more HOA activities on my property. That includes the fishing club, tournaments, community cookouts, whatever else y'all been doing down here without asking. If you or your guests step foot on this dock without permission, I'll consider it trespassing. And you don't want that smoke. Trina tried a softer approach now, her voice almost pleading. Mr. Coleman, Darius, come on. We've had these traditions for years. Can't we work something out? He looked at her, then at the rest of them. Sure, he said finally, but it's going to cost you. Starting now, any HOA-sanctioned use of this lake requires a lease agreement and a security deposit and ways. And believe me, it won't be cheap. Mike swallowed hard. How much are we talking? Darius smiled. 5 figures for the season, minimum, and I want it in writing, signed by your board. Linda exploded. You've lost your mind. We're not paying you to use a lake that's been part of this community for decades. He tilted his head. Funny thing about decades, Linda. They don't matter if the deed says otherwise. She stepped closer, finger pointing like a dagger. This isn't over. We'll fight this. Darius's grin widened just a little. You do that. But while you're busy fighting, tell your fishing club their big summer tournament? Canceled. The sound that came out of Linda's throat was halfway between a gasp and a growl. Behind her, Trina and Mike looked like someone had told them Christmas was outlawed. Ken folded his arms, letting out a long breath. Guess we better call an emergency meeting. Guess you better, Darius said, gathering his papers and sliding them back into the folder, because things just changed around here. But as the HOA crew walked back toward their cars in stunned silence, Linda's mind wasn't on meetings. No, she was already plotting something, and that something was about to turn this neighborhood drama into an all-out war. By Sunday morning, Lakeshore Estates was buzzing, but not with lawnmowers or birds. No, this was a different kind of noise. Whispers, side-eye glances, and text messages flying faster than a summer storm. Word had spread like wildfire. Did you hear? Linda got shut down by some guy at the lake. Not just any guy. Apparently he owns the whole thing. What? That's impossible. It wasn't impossible. It was printed in black and white on a deed sitting in Darius's safe. And now, the entire HOA was scrambling. At the community clubhouse, Linda had gathered her loyalists. Her usual commanding presence was cracked, but she hid it under layers of indignation. Trina sat across from her, arms crossed, while Mike nursed a cup of coffee like it was keeping him alive. Ken leaned against the wall, Bluetooth blinking, already on his second call with an attorney. This is outrageous, Linda fumed, pacing the carpet. That man cannot just waltz in and take away community rights like that. Trina spoke up, calm but firm. Linda, he didn't waltz in. He's owned that property for years. You saw the documents. I don't care what papers he flashed, Linda snapped. We have bylaws. We have authority. Ken muted his call. Authority over what? The neighborhood, yes, but not land that doesn't belong to us. And legally, it doesn't. The lawyer confirmed it. Linda whipped around. So what? We just let him hold us hostage? Hostage? Mike finally spoke, his voice tired. Linda, maybe if you hadn't gone down there like a sheriff from an old western, we wouldn't be in this mess. You picked the wrong guy to flex on. The room went quiet. Trina glanced at Linda, then at Mike. He wasn't wrong. Linda's jaw tightened. So what do you suggest? That we pay him? That we let him dictate terms like some king? Ken shrugged. Unless you want to risk a trespassing lawsuit, yeah, that's the smart play. Linda slammed her clipboard on the table. The sound echoed sharp and final. No, I'm not bending to him. If he thinks he can humiliate me and walk away smiling, he's got another thing coming. But while Linda plotted revenge, the rest of the neighborhood was busy choosing sides. By late afternoon, Darius's phone was blowing up, not with threats, but with compliments. A few neighbors even stopped by his property, smiling sheepishly. Hey man, just wanted to say, bold move out there, one guy said, hands stuffed in his shorts pockets. Honestly, Linda needed that. Appreciate it, Darius replied, nodding. Another neighbor, an older gentleman with a fishing hat, approached. So, does this mean we can't fish here anymore? Darius thought about it. The truth was, he didn't mind people enjoying the lake. What he minded was entitlement. The way folks like Linda acted like his generosity was their right. "I'm not shutting everyone out," he said finally. "Just making sure people respect boundaries. Big difference." Word traveled fast. By evening, some folks were cheering him on in private, while others whispered that he was a tyrant in the making. And Linda? She was stoking that fire. She called a special session of the HOA that night. Every chair in the clubhouse was filled. The air buzzed with tension as she stood at the front, flipping through her clipboard like she was about to deliver the State of the Union. "This," she declared, "isn't just about a lake. It's about control. If we allow one man to dictate what happens in this neighborhood, what's next? Today, it's the dock. Tomorrow, it's our property values." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some nodded. Others looked skeptical. One voice cut through the chatter. "Or maybe this is about you, Linda." Heads turned. It was Trina, calm, steady, but sharp. "You marched down there, trying to throw your weight around, and you got burned. Now the rest of us are paying for it." Gasps, whispers, a few stifled laughs. Linda's face went crimson. "Trina," she said slowly, "if you're not here to support this board, then—" "I'm here to support what's right," Trina interrupted. "And right now, we need to stop acting like we own something we don't." The room erupted, half arguing, half defending Linda. It was chaos. Meanwhile, Darius sat on his porch, sipping a glass of iced tea, watching the sunset bounce off the water. He didn't need to be at that meeting to know what was happening. People like Linda, they weren't used to losing ground. And when they did, they didn't go quietly. But Darius had no idea just how far Linda was willing to go, and the next move she made would cross a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The knock came just as the sun dipped below the tree line. 3 short raps, sharp, impatient. Darius set down his glass and headed to the door, already knowing who it was. Sure enough, there stood Linda Prescott, her perfect blouse slightly wrinkled, hair not as immaculate as usual. The clipboard was gone. Her hands were clenched at her sides like she was holding on to the last threads of control. "Evening," Darius said, voice calm as ever. "What can I do for you?" She stepped past him without waiting for an invitation. That alone made him chuckle. "Make yourself at home," he muttered, closing the door behind her. "This isn't funny," she snapped, spinning to face him. "You've humiliated me. You've embarrassed the entire board. Do you have any idea what kind of chaos you've caused?" Darius walked to his kitchen counter and leaned against it, arms crossed. "Chaos? Nah, I didn't cause it. I just exposed it." Her eyes flared. "You could have worked with us. You could have said something years ago." "I didn't need to," Darius said evenly. "Y'all were enjoying the lake, and I was fine with that. But then you came down there with your clipboard, barking orders, threatening fines. On property that wasn't yours." He paused, letting that sink in. "That's where you messed up." Linda paced the floor like a caged animal. "Do you have any idea how this makes me look? People are questioning my leadership. They're calling me reckless." Darius tilted his head. "And whose fault is that?" For a moment, she didn't speak. Her chest rose and fell fast, her lips tight like she was chewing on her pride. Finally, she stopped pacing and faced him. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice quieter now. "Money? Power? Just name it." He almost laughed at that. "Linda, this was never about money. It's about respect. You assumed I was just some guy breaking your little rules. You didn't ask. You didn't even talk to me. You came swinging with authority you didn't have." Her jaw clenched. "I was doing my job." "No," Darius said, stepping closer, his voice low but firm. "You were doing too much, and that's a lesson for all of us. Don't confuse control with leadership. Real leaders listen. They respect people before they demand respect." She looked at him, something flickering in her eyes, a mix of anger and realization. "So, what now?" "Now?" He shrugged. "You go back, call off your little crusade, and stop trying to run folks like a dictatorship. I'll let people use the lake, but under one condition. You stay out of it. No more HOA events, no more power plays. You want to fish? Fine, but you come as a neighbor, not a boss." Linda swallowed hard. Pride was a bitter pill, and it showed on her face. After what felt like an eternity, she nodded once. "Fine," she said, barely above a whisper. "Good," Darius replied, stepping back. Because this wasn't about winning, Linda. It was about reminding folks that respect costs nothing, but losing it? That'll bankrupt you. She turned toward the door, pausing for just a second before walking out. And for the first time since he met her, Linda Prescott didn't have a single word left to say. But as the door clicked shut, Darius knew something important. Sometimes, the biggest battles aren't about property lines. They're about boundaries people can't see. And tonight, one was drawn clear as day. The night settled over the lake like a calm blanket. The water shimmered under the moonlight, soft ripples glinting silver as if nothing had happened. But Darius knew better. Everything had changed. He walked back to his dock, hands in his pockets, and stared out at the still water. This place had always been his sanctuary, a quiet escape from the noise of business deals and city chaos. But now, it was something more. It was a lesson. The truth is, people assume things. They assume power means respect. They assume titles make them untouchable. And when those assumptions go unchecked, they breed entitlement. Linda learned that tonight, the hard way. Darius wasn't angry, not really. If anything, he almost felt sorry for her. She'd spent so long hiding behind rules that she forgot what they were for: community, fairness, peace. Somewhere along the line, she traded those values for control. And here's the thing about control. It's an illusion. You can enforce it for a while, but sooner or later, reality steps in and reminds you who's really holding the cards. Darius took a deep breath of the cool night air and smiled to himself. He wasn't looking for revenge. He didn't want a fight. All he wanted was a little respect. And maybe now he had it. The neighborhood would adjust. People would talk. Some would cheer for him. Others would grumble, but life would go on. And the next time someone strutted down that dock with a clipboard and a sense of superiority, they'd think twice. Because at the end of the day, this wasn't about a lake. It wasn't even about property. It was about something bigger. Knowing when to lead, when to listen, and when to let go of control. As Darius turned to head back inside, he thought of one last thing. A message that wasn't just for Linda, but for anyone who needed to hear it. Respect isn't a rule in a handbook. It's a choice. One you make every single day. He flicked off the porch light, the glow disappearing into the night. The lake stayed still. The lesson stayed louder. And that's where I want to leave you with this question. Have you ever dealt with someone who thought their title gave them power over you? How did you handle it? Drop your story in the comments. I want to hear about it. And if this lesson hit home for you, share this video with someone who needs that reminder. Because respect, it's free, but it's worth everything.